So I want to make my own D&D campaign, and I have zero experience. Alright, so like any struggling student, I ChatGPT'd it to see where I should start on making the campaign. And the first step is to understand the basics of D&D. To do that, I have to read the player's handbook and also the Dungeons Master Guide. Just to give you guys a little background, I have played Dungeons & Dragons before, but I've never actually created a campaign of my own or even DM'd. So this is gonna be the first time I do both. And I kind of have a rough structure of how I want the world to be. But before that, I think I should read the Dungeons Master Guide. For all you D&D newbies out there, a Dungeon Master is pretty much like the storyteller and the person who kind of orchestrates the entire plot of the campaign. And they get to play as the monster, they get to play as any NPCs, and they're kind of like the director of a movie. The big part of being a DM is be able to improvise on the spot. But the most important role of a Dungeon Master, and I think it's the most fun aspect of a Dungeon Master, is to create your own world and to kind of flesh it out with your own monsters, different types of fauna, flora, stuff like that. For this campaign, I'm gonna take certain aspects that are already implemented in D&D, but I'm also gonna shove my own interpretations, and that's called homebrewing. For those who don't know, homebrew is just any rules, race, settings, adventures, etc. that are all made up by the Dungeon Master. The main thing I want to homebrew is my own magic system. I think having my own magic system would be so dope. I'm gonna flesh that out a bit more later on in the video. I'll probably have chapters for each section of the campaign I'm gonna be talking about placed along the timeline, so you guys can just jump to wherever. And the second step in ChatGPT's guide is to decide on the campaign style. And I was hoping for a more kind of dark, gritty tone, and the setting will be maybe a little bit more high fantasy, like traditional D&D. As for the length of the campaign, that'll probably depend on the players, so I'm just gonna leave that up in the air for now. But apart from that, I get to move on to the third step, actually making the world. This is probably the most exciting part of being a DM, and the main reason of why I'm making this video. I don't want to use a pre-made setting. Nah, screw all that, that's boring. I want to make my own stuff, my own original Cashew Andrew certified stamp stuff, man. And for that, I gotta think about that a little bit. So I'll catch you guys in a second. I'm so corny, bro. Oh my gosh. So it's been a couple days now, and I've fleshed out the campaign a lot more since the start. The entirety of this campaign is going to be taking place inside of this large tower. And to give you guys a little bit of context as to the setting of this world, I'm going to take you guys on a little history lesson. Before the Tower of Babel rose, the world was torn apart by the Old War, a brutal conflict between God's army and Lucifer's legion. The two forces fought over the fate of humanity. Heaven sought to cleanse the world of mortal corruption, while hell aimed to claim it through domination. Caught in the middle, humanity crumbled. Great cities fell as divine and infernal forces unleashed apocalyptic powers upon them. The fabric of reality began to unravel. As the world teetered on the edge of annihilation, one man stepped forth. King Solomon, a mortal archmage, who had once ruled over a great city of his own, enacted a powerful final spell. He transformed humanity into seed crystals for preservation and constructed the Tower of Babel, a structure forever frozen in time where humanity would be safe. However, as eons passed in isolation, Solomon's mind began to erode. His presence within the throne fractured, and the tower, once perfect and still, began to suffer. Lucifer's influence and God's wrath bled through, blurring the original purpose of the tower, corrupting the structure. And now, humanity must climb this tower to find out the truth. The first floor, also known as the nursery, is located at the base of the tower. This place is a beautiful bioluminescent garden tended to by one caretaker. Humans who were transformed into seeds by Solomon are planted beneath the soil here, and once they have fully matured, they dig their way out from the dirt and take in a beautiful breath of fresh air. Some that are lucky enough are blessed with mana or have their previous skills enhanced. The caretaker directs every new awakened human up onto the second floor, also known as Latveria. It is a settlement constructed by the first awakened humans, but that piece has long since subsided. The citizens of this settlement have split up into three main factions. First, we have the root keepers, those that want to reinforce the city and prevent further exploration of the tower because they see it as too risky. Second, we have the bloomborns, those that adopt a more radical ideology that encourage everyone to embrace their new awakened gifts and use that to further their journey up the tower. Then third, we have the memoryless. It's pretty much a mysterious group of cult members that don't really belong into the first or second group, and they all worship this one man named the Warden of Silence. This faction comes into play further up the tower. The third floor is called the Ember Forge. It is a city built upon an ocean of lava, and magma is just pouring out from all of these buildings. OSHA would not be happy with the city planner for Ember Forge. Hey, on the bright side, your coffee is always going to be hot. But apart from that, this floor is filled with infernal creatures that roam the cobblestone streets, and at the very center is a huge forge that is powered by souls. To any paladin or melee warriors out there, this is gonna be your floor. Moving on, the fourth floor is called the Twilight Cavern. It is a blood-soaked swamp that is draped in forever darkness. Running around this darkness are vampires, but they don't have any eyes because the eyes are the gateway to the soul, and vampires have no souls. So they use echolocation to find their prey. Scattered across this floor are various shrines in which you could do blood rituals and get certain buffs, but you would have to offer something of equal value in return. The fifth floor is called the Holy Citadel. It is a bunch of floating islands tied down by giant glowing chains. The center is the largest island and is also a courtroom. In this courtroom, a judge will decide if you're guilty or not guilty. If you're guilty, you're gonna have to fight every angel in this courtroom. If you're not, then you get to ascend to the other floor for free. The way that this judge is gonna evaluate if you're guilty or not are from the previous actions that you have done in other floors. This beautiful skeletal man is literally gonna judge you from actions that you have done 3 campaigns ago. The sixth floor is called the Library Willow. It is an endless archive of different novels and literature. Guarding this floor are librarians, and like the librarians we have in real life, if you are too loud, they're gonna come down and chop your head right off. Apart from that, you can read through any of the large collection of books in this library, but be wary though, as if you read too much, you might absorb too much information and your brain can melt. The seventh floor is called the Bottomless Masquerade. It's pretty much like a carnival-esque sort of floor where primordial Fey lords rule over everything. And to traverse through this floor, you have to wear these masks that make you see illusions. These illusions really test your mental fortitude because you can easily just go insane. If you decide not to wear the mask, then you risk angering the primordial Fey lords. The eighth floor is called the Static Tundra. It's pretty much a giant snow-covered expanse where ice-trapped warriors swinging their axe mid-motion or have animals jumping mid-leap. I mean, it's pretty good for sightseeing, but just terrible for everything else. Then we have the ninth floor called the Starwell. A good way of describing this floor will be a poor man's version of H.P. Lovecraft's novels. The floor and terrain is filled with stars. At the center of it all is a giant black sphere. Everything is drawn towards it, same with gravity, and those that are blessed with mana are able to hear whispers coming from this void. You can also see a bunch of different cultists worshipping this void. This is where the memoryless faction comes in. Then we have the 10th floor, known as the Echoes of the Mind. This floor doesn't have a set terrain as it uses the memories of those who enter to build upon the landscape. So it could be a childhood home, a battlefield, or even your first part-time job. Last but not least, we have Solomon's Throne Room. It is a beautiful crystal garden with a bunch of flora and fauna running free upon the place. At the epicenter, suspended in midair, is a giant golden throne. At the bottom of that golden throne are exact copies of those who have entered into this throne room. The last and final test that this tower offers for the party members is for them to defeat themselves, either in combat or intelligence or however the party decides to go about it. Humanity's fate literally rests upon their shoulders. No pressure though. After successfully defeating themselves, the tower would then crumble down to the floor and the truth will be revealed. What is the truth, you may ask? Well, it's So every living creature in this world has spiritual energy. It's like your typical Key in Dragon Ball, Nen in Hunter x Hunter, Haki in One Piece, stuff of that nature. However, if you are exceptionally lucky, you are blessed with mana. A good comparison for this would be looking at gasoline and diesel. Diesel is a lot more effective and energy efficient, but it is significantly more costly. Same thing with mana. Not everyone has mana, but those who do are exceptionally lucky. With mana, you're able to convert that energy into something of the physical form, such as a fireball or a cloud of rain. The conduit in which you would convert mana into physical form is a spell circle. All spell circles in this world are hand-drawn and are composed of 3 main elements. At the center is an elemental symbol that dictates the nature of the spell. Surrounding the elemental symbol in the center are glyphs. This dictates the way in which the nature of the spell will take form. Let's say you drew a fire symbol in the middle. The surrounding glyphs will dictate whether it will be a fireball or fire arrows. Surrounding the perimeter of the symbols is a large circle. Upon completing the circle, the spell will activate. Once you have used the spell circle once, you're not able to recycle it and reuse it again. You would have to draw an entirely new spell circle. It is also important to note that once a person's mana runs out, they die, because mana is the energy of life. The size of the spell circle is directly correlated with the strength of the spell. Using these basic concepts, mages are able to prepare portable spells beforehand by preparing a spell circle onto a piece of paper or rock, but leaving the circle around the perimeter incomplete. So whenever they want to use it, they quickly take it out, finish the circle, and activate the spell. However, it is important to keep in mind these portable spells are very weak compared to the spells you would draw on the ground, say for example, mainly because of the small size of the incantations drawn. Another neat application of these basic concepts is that you could have half of a spell circle drawn onto an end of a piece of paper and then have the other half drawn on the opposite end. And when you fold the pieces of paper together, it activates the spell. And whenever you want the spell to deactivate, you would unfold the piece of paper. However, you can't reuse the spell circle anymore after using a spell once, as the spell circle would then become null. This technique is very useful for spells such as invisibility or speed, things you can toggle on and off. Apart from your generic fireballs and rainstorms, there are also forbidden forms of magic. They're also known as curses. Some of these include, but are not limited to, magic that directly affect a person's body or directly drawing a spell circle onto a person's body. And of course, magic that changes the fundamental rules of reality. By using any of the forbidden spells / curses, you will gain a negative reputation with people in the city, and in turn, they can grow hostile towards you. So it's fisticuffs on site. Of course, magic can be used for grandiose spells, but it can also be used for mundane tasks as well, such as converting your own mana into thermal energy to heat up a nice cup of coffee. Additionally, there are also creatures that are intrinsically connected with magic. They are known as fey creatures. These fey creatures cannot be seen with the naked eye and require someone with mana to train for years to open up the third eye to be able to see these creatures. However, it can be very rewarding because they have a large pool of mana that the mage is able to pull from if they are able to persuade them. In rare cases, mages are able to form contracts with these fey creatures, substantially increasing their pool of mana. And hey, if you guys are close enough, you might even be able to learn a couple spells. But be wary though, as fey creatures have personalities of their own. Some can be tricksters, some can be kind, some can be easily angered. It all depends on their individual nature. And approaching one requires great care and caution. Alright, I don't know how to end the video, but if this video does well enough, we're gonna actually play the campaign.
You put your no shoes on, go fix up your hair.